What small choice you made changed your life? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. My dad asked me to go with him to take my sister to dance one morning. I wasn't dressed, and it's boring, so said no. They died in a car crash on the way home. I think about about 100 times a day. Answer, realize, and this may not help, that if you'd gone, it likely wouldn't have happened. The ripple effect would have ballooned outward, and everything would have been different. You may be left 15 seconds later. Missed a light they made. It compounds and the entire situation is different. Point isn't that it's your fault, but rather that you can't point to any one thing in isolation. You have no idea what would have happened if you gone. Story 2. When my granddad died years ago, he left behind his journal. It was basically a diary. My dad read it through and through, and when my first son was born, my dad gave it to me. Now inside the journal, he wrote many things spanning years. But one common thread was him writing a phrase, "Gotta find the light." This explained many things, in particular, why he was such a kind and positive person. No matter the situation, no matter what bad thing happened, he'd always find a way to find something good or funny about it. His cab broke down, now I can get another one. My grandma passed away. She's with God now. Bet he's better company. A dog bit his leg. Now he knows what spicy Negro tastes like, so I started trying to find the light. And this skill helped me get over so many hurdles in my life. Basic training was hell. I'm going to be so much stronger after this. My dog, best friend all through my childhood, passed away due to old age. At least he's not suffering now. My oldest son broke my church warden. Well, he's got an interest in dad's things. My wife often says that she depends on my positivity because she's a realist and a negative person. She'll rest her head on my lap and tell me all black clouds over her head. And like the sun, I'll burst right through and offer a positive ray or two. And I gotta admit, seeing a smile poke through her pessimistic outlook because I found a bit of light in a dark place feels pretty good. Sure, things may get dark, but there's always a bit of light, however tiny, if you just find it. Thank you, Granddad. Edit, thank you all for the awards. I'm happy to share stuff about my granddad. The guy was and still is an inspiration to me. Story 3. I was sitting at my friend's bar while he was printing up a help wanted sign. I hadn't done service industry in 20 years, but I had just spent 4 years unemployed because I was taking care of my failing parents, and I really didn't want to go back to the tech industry. I told him I wished I could work for him. He said, "You can, just come in tomorrow and fill out paperwork." Later that evening, I texted him, "Were you serious?" And he replied, "Come in tomorrow." Been there for 8 years now. It's the best job I've ever had. Even my therapist says it's the best thing I've done for my mental health. Story 4. Pity instead of anger. I used to have some severe anger issues, just angry at everything and everyone. Everything pissed me off. Everyone aggravated me. I had a therapist that worked with me on a meditation technique of pondering the things that pissed me off or made me angry the most, and then working from the anger to pity. For instance, I held on to deep-rooted and very justified anger towards my dad. In my meditation, when I would think about my dad and childhood, and as my thoughts and memory wandered and I felt myself getting angry, I would refocus my thoughts to pity for him. He has severe mental illnesses. He is probably lost in his own chaos of a mind and is always feeling alone and angry at himself. Changing the thoughts from animosity and anger to pity and feeling sorry for him. After a couple decades of this practice, it has become the default thought process. When I see someone doing something, shoot, my first thoughts are no longer, "What a piece of shoot," or "I dislike it when people do that," but now is, "I wonder what drove them to this," or "That must be horrible for them to live that way and think that way." I am a much happier person now and have much healthier social interactions with pity and empathy rather than anger and fear. Answer, I don't get angry easily. I tend to think any problem is rooted in something I'm doing wrong, so I hold my tongue and beat myself up until I calm down, except when it comes to my dad. He's an alcoholic, sexist, bipolar jerk. I used to pity him because I know he's miserable, and I'd continuously try to find him some help so he wouldn't spend every second of our phone calls ranting about my mom and all the women that wronged him. Until one day when I was driving to work, he called me and started yelling. He had, as always, been drinking and felt I had somehow slighted him. I was now part of the problem in his mind. I asked him if he had anything nice to say. He said no, so I hung up and finally blocked him. I'm bipolar too, so I know what it's like to be depressed out of your mind. But he refused to get any help, so I was stuck being the only person who could tolerate him until that phone call. Last I heard, he was in the hospital with dementia due to liver failure. I'm all out of pity. All I have now is regret that I put up with him for so long. I forgot where I was going with this. Story 5. A friend asked if I wanted to go for a drive with him to pick up his friend from college. I had nothing better to do, so I said yes. I ended up marrying his friend's roommate. Story 6. Sitting at a table opposite of a 13-year-old boy when I was 12, I waved at him with my stuffed teddy bear to say hi because the boy looked bored. 41 years later, I'm typing this as he sleeps quietly next to me. Life has been a wild ride, but that remains one of the most impacting choices I will ever make in life. Story 7. Giving up substances and adult beverage. While my social life has gotten a little more boring, it's nice not feeling fried or hungover from substances, and I feel my brain healing. Story 8. Picture this. It's 1995. I'm a language nut, so my geeky friend tells me about this internet chat program called IRC, where I can talk to anyone around the world. He gives me the diskette with the program on it and promises he'll come online after school to show me how to use it. I ask him how I'll know he's there, and he says he'll go by some generic nickname. I go home, install the program, get signed on, and start looking for my friend. I see someone with this generic nickname on a chat channel for people around the world. Excellent. Not only have I found my friend, I've found a channel of people to chat with. I join and start talking, but quickly realize this person is not my friend. A nice German guy offers to show me how to use the program in his very basic English. We connect every day when I get home from school. He wants to practice English. He works night shifts, so it works out well. We meet in person when I graduate from high school in the late 90s. We've been married 21 years. Story 9. I think deciding to change my attitude is what made a big difference in my life. I decided to put a positive spin on life and try to be happier. It might sound stupid, but life is an attitude, and a person can decide if they want to be miserable or happy. Story 10. Reduce my adult beverage intake. I always drink water at a bar and can still have a great night. Stay hydrated the whole night and can get home sober and safe. The best part is I can remember the night and how fun it was. Story 11. Edit. Becoming a mom to my stepkids when I began dating their dad, their biological mom had sadly passed away a few months prior, and when I began dating their dad, the second I first held them, they were 4 months old when I met them, something awoke in my heart. To this day, they're now 16 and am still with their dad. They don't refer to me as their stepmom. They just call me mom, but they know the truth of what happened to their biological mother. Story 12. Saying one thing when talking with my friend while severely tired, due to which we ended up confessing to each other and starting dating. Said friend has been an absolutely fantastic GM, and I would not trade the world for her. Alternatively, me deciding to send her a message that led to us starting talking and eventually dating. Story 13. I was backpacking through South America when I met 2 girls from Germany. Originally, I had planned to visit Machu Picchu and then stay in Cusco for 4 days. In the bus to Machu Picchu, I met them and really clicked with one of them. When I heard they were going straight to Lima, I said, "Oh yeah, I was planning on leaving the same day." We all booked tickets together and got to keep hanging out. 9 years later, we are married and have 2 kids. Story 14. I agreed to help score a cricket match just after COVID because I was going crazy stuck in my house. I was terrible at it, but came back the next week anyway. Now I have a whole new group of people who are fun and supportive and challenge me to do more and better things. I was in such a dark place before, and now I have a whole future and a big group of friends. It sounds so silly, but just saying yes to that one thing got me out of a rut and back on a beautiful path. Story 15. 24 years ago, I decided to get coffee before a job interview, which put me in the situation of a car accident. I missed my interview appointment, so I applied at the restaurant where I was waiting for the tow truck. The manager hired me on the spot, and on my first night, I met another server who told me that when I walked in, he told the manager he was going to marry me. 1 year later, my oldest son was born. I think of this often. Every day we wake up and our whole lives can change. Sometimes a blessing, other time a curse, but it creates a sense of adventure to acknowledge this and be curious every day. Who knows, maybe missed interview is the greatest thing that will ever happen to you. Story 16. Well, earlier this year, I got an ADHD diagnosis, now have just began meds. I'm in my mid-20s and have lost a good chunk of my early adulthood to PTSD and no treatment. I hope this is the turn of a new leaf. Story 17. I used to go to an alternative high school away from all the friends I grew up with. I was also working a part-time construction job while going to school. One day we got rained out on the job site, and I got off work early. I was near my old high school and decided to swing by and say hi to my friends during lunch. One of the school principals noticed me and asked what I was doing there. I was not allowed on school grounds since I was no longer a student and was asked to leave. I made up this BS story about how I was really there to transfer back to that school, and they said, "Oh, you need to speak to counselor so-and-so," and left me alone. Anyways, lunch ends. I said bye to my friends and head over to the vending machines to grab a pop on my way out. As I'm heading out the front door, this guy approaches me and introduces themselves as the counselor the principal mentioned. I followed him into his office, and he gave me a list of everything I needed to do to transfer back to my original high school. I literally studied my jerk off and got all my high school credits caught up, transferred back to my original high school the last 6 months of 12th grade, and graduated with a regular high school diploma with all my friends. There were a few things that happened that day that kind of all culminated together, but yeah, definitely a day I look back on and think about often. Story 18. No sodas. Cutting out beer, bread, and flour products. Biking 5 miles a day. I feel a difference in my waistline, and my new ring is already loose on me. Story 19. Downloading an app called Lose It to track calories right before COVID hit. Went from $216 to $177 in about a year. Story 20. In high school, I actively trained myself to stop saying, "Oh, I'm dumb," whenever I made a little mistake or missed something obvious. If I ever did say it through force of habit, I would immediately turn around and say, "No, you're not dumb." I don't think I knew at the time how important that was or how that would serve me later in life, but I am so grateful to that, oftentimes more confident version of myself. No one gave me the idea to do that. I just thought on my own that I shouldn't be talking to myself like that, and I still don't. Answer: fantastic. I have changed the way I talk to myself, especially aloud, LOL, since our son came along. If I slip and call myself stupid, I correct myself and say that I am not stupid. Just not paying attention, made a mistake, need to focus, or take a breath, need to ask for help, need to rethink my method. I don't have horrible self-image and was surprised by how often I was using very negative self-talk. Story 21. I don't know how small of a choice, but I was standing in a room full of people and looked through the door, and like tunnel vision, I saw my future wife. I didn't know her. She was a little blonde, just looking at me, stirring her drink in a black dress. That was in a Feb. We were married in July, and we are still going 20 years strong. As the doctors have told us, she has maybe 23 months left. Cancer is a horrible thing. I don't regret a minute of our lives together. Story 22. Friend in first period told me that we could skip second period if we went to a visiting college recruiters talk. It was her dream school. Tagged along to skip class. Ended up getting a 4-year scholarship there, and pretty sure it helped me land my competitive first job, since one of the interviewers was a fellow alum, and we talked football. Story 23. Asked out a girl next door who I thought was way out of my league. We live together now and have been dating for 4 years. I had a lifelong track record of chickening out over much smaller things, so I'm glad I took that risk. Story 24. I dislike going to bars, but I went begrudgingly and reunited with a girl I barely knew in high school, but was obsessed with. We fell in love and have been together almost 10 years, and she is the best person I know. And I honestly find her more attractive than anyone, even the hottest celebrity. Story 25. Applying for a new job and just going through with it. I was stuck in a dead-end office job for 10 years. COVID came around, which made the monthly business trips to US and Middle East, Asia, Africa impossible, and made my job even more boring since there were no trade shows as well. After the pandemic, the trips started to become more frequent and everything felt so overwhelmingly boring. Responded to a job vacancy, and not even 2 months later, I started doing something completely different and more fast-paced that suits me so much better. People around me and my management appreciate and compliment me with my efforts, and I just feel so much better. On top of that, I make more money, and they gave me a car. I thought I was going to be stuck in my former job until retirement, because who would want me at this point in my career? Well, a lot of people apparently. Story 26. Decided to wait for my father to call me for once. I was 19 and always the one putting effort into us having a modicum of adult relationship. I always called, texted first, usually weekly but often more. After a childhood that was 50 neglect, 25 weird normalcy, and 25 outright abuse, I decided I was tired of dragging myself through that, and that if he called me to talk, just to check in, then I would know he cared about me and my efforts weren't being partied too hard. That was 12 years ago. He never called. A small decision that allowed me to release the idea that our relationship could be fixed and let me focus on the healing of letting go. Story 27. When I was hiking the Nakasendo Trail in Japan in 2011, literally the same week the tsunami hit, but that's another story. My group stopped by a small village in which there were a few gift shops. On a whim, I thought I'd get a thin wooden cane shaped like a shepherd's hook because A, I thought it would help with the copious amounts of hiking we were doing, and B, I've been an old man trapped in a youngster's body since about 10, and this decision was very par for the course of me hamming that belief up fast forward about an hour later. We're crossing a small bridge that is completely iced over, making our way carefully with each step. Like a fudge idiot, I was wearing sneakers with little to no traction. About halfway across, my right foot slipped on a step with a slight slant, and instinctively I jammed my cane as hard as I could into the bridge. Not a single other person in my group noticed, but I looked down and was quick to clock that 30-foot drop right into a rushing river. If I got a different souvenir, or the cane had hit any part of the bridge other than a small groove that offered just the right amount of leverage, I'm dead. I think about this moment every now and then, as it reminds me just how fragile our lives truly are, despite even our best efforts or intentions. Story 28. I always run the dishwasher when I wake up. Small task, and it sets a productive tone to the whole day. Story 29. Instead of working things out again, I said no when my sister invited me for coffee. I used to wake up with daily headaches for years, and I had tried all sorts of things with no relief, but the headaches stopped because my sister threw a rage fit and cut off contact. I guess they were tension headaches after all. Story 30. I skipped a meal because I was super busy at work. When I finally did eat, I realized it had been 16 hours since my last meal. I felt great that day and decided to do it again the next day. On the third day, I realized that my clothing were a bit loose. I had dropped 3 lbs by skipping one meal. From that point on, I kept on with intermittent fasting. I have dropped 22 pounds in 5 weeks. Story 31. A different parking spot. One night in 2020, I had just gotten home from the gym and pulled into the same spot I always park at in front of my house. I was just about to turn off the car when something danced in the beams of my headlights a ways up the road. I inched forward a couple feet to get a better look and saw a beautiful little fawn scatter off into the ditch. Weird, I thought. We don't usually get deer around our property because we don't have much timber, and it was young, almost too young to be without its mama. Plus, it was late in the season for such a little fawn, but it was gone, and the moment passed. I was going to back into my usual, but suddenly felt exhausted to my bones and didn't even have the energy to turn my head around to back up. I figured, fudge it, threw it into park, and went inside to get my daughter ready for bed. The next day was Monday, and I haven't worked a Monday in years out of principle, so I was home with my pre-K daughter. I'd been puttering about the garden like I do while she played around in the sprinkler. I walked inside to get something and happened to glimpse at the TV, which had been tuned in to the local PBS channel for my daughter's morning dose of Curious George. Joe Winters, our local weatherman, yes, that's his real name, was all in a tizzy about something, which didn't surprise me because the humidity was so stifling that day you could have choked on it, and that often breeds some severe weather, usually just a blustery thunderstorm, but now and then you'll get a nadir. What caught my attention as I glanced out the window at my daughter was how quickly the sky had changed in the short time I'd been inside. The horizon to the east had become plum-colored, and then I heard Joe say 90 Pranzo Machan winds moving towards our area at 70 mep. I looked again at the horizon and saw what looked like a monster wave in cloud form rolling violently towards us. That was my holy shoot moment. I ran outside and turned off the hose, scooping up my toddler to settle her on the couch while I grabbed and secured anything that could blow away. I had just minutes before the wind started really whipping around. She's taking her sweet time selecting the stuffies that must accompany us to the basement, and I'm watching out window as a hay bale rolls out of the field next to my house and across the street. These bales ain't small, probably 500 lbs, easy, and it was rolling around like a tire. We're finally on our way to the basement when we hear a giant crack, and then it felt like the house bounced. I get us down there and covered, and we ride out the storm for what feels like a century, way longer than your average tornado or straight-line winds. Finally, it stops howling outside, and I creep up the stairs to assess the damage. I look out the side door and realize I can see more of my fire pit than I ever have before from this angle. The 200-year-old maple next to my house had fallen. I go upstairs expecting devastation, but everything is intact. Nothing is any more out of place than my Tasmanian devil of toddler had left it, but the tree has completely blocked the main entrance, and I cannot see past my front porch. That's when I remember my car. I run out the side door and around front, holding my breath. My car is covered. It's underneath what was the canopy of our old maple. It's fudge totaled for sure, I think, and I've only got liability. But once I navigate the limbs and branches to get a better look, I realize it's not totaled. In fact, aside from needing a wash, it's just fine and dandy, thank you very much. It didn't flatten the boat that was parked up a ways either, and it turns out it had just barely skimmed the trim of the front porch. Nothing a hammer and a nail couldn't fix. It did take out the U in front of the house that I disliked for years. Oh, darn. We didn't even lose power. Some folks went without for weeks following the derecho of 2020. Many lost their homes. If I'd parked my car where I usually do, it would have been crushed. I'd only had it a year. If the tree had fallen 2 feet to the left, we would have been crushed. The fact that it missed our rickety old fishing boat was a bonus. That string of strange and dramatic events reinstilled a faith in me that I didn't think was retrievable. Not in God necessarily, but in life and the universe in general. It tends to unfold as it should, you know. I think about what might have happened if I hadn't walked inside when I did to hear to Joe telling us to get to your safe place now, or if that tree had fallen literally anywhere else than it did, and I'm filled with a deep sense of gratitude that I get to be here to experience this crazy ride, even when the going gets bumpy and rough. I hope you all find your divine parking spot. Thanks for reading. Story 32. Asking a boy to introduce me to his friend. Been with him ever since, 10 years high school sweethearts. I also moved in with him 3 months in because my mother kicked me out because I chose to tell her no to spend time with him. Thank God I did this, and thank God for his mom and stepdad to let me move in. Story 33. Deciding to stop by our local dog rehoming center on a whim just to say hello to the dogs. We saw a huge black dog looking terrified. She wasn't barking like the other dogs, she was trembling. Decided right there we had to help her. 8 years later, she's snoring beside me. Happy, healthy. We rescued her, but after my husband died last year, she rescued me. I absolutely would be dead without her. She gave me the reason to get up, to eat, to keep going. She still does. Story 34. Making my bed every morning. I used to do it hastily, or not at all. Now I take an extra few seconds to ensure everything is neat. World of difference coming home to a crisp bed. Story 35. Deciding to message that cute guy on the dating app. Years later, still completely and ridiculously head over heels for him. Couldn't imagine anyone better. Story 36. Decided to go to a reunion for a summer program as a teenager. Met a cute girl. We now have 2 kids and a house. Moral of the story, go do things that aren't dangerous or illegal. Talk to people about 90s TV shows, and you might find the love of your life. Story 37. I broke up with a girl and was nearly moved to another state to live with friends and start over before meeting my now wife in a club one night. We just celebrated our 27th year of marriage earlier this month. Story 38. Buy fresh flowers for myself once a week. It could only be a little bunch or Tesco reduced at the end of the evening ones, but it's been so nice sitting and having breakfast in the morning with a vase of flowers in the middle of the table. It brightens the start of my day. Story 39. Apply for an aerospace internship. My best friend forced my hand and I was almost going to give up on STEM as I was struggling and did not know where to go. I did material chemistry there, loved it, and my then supervisor introduced me to the woman who would then go to become my mentor at a research group in the future. I would have never become a chemist if it weren't for that event. Story 40. Jogging and stopped drinking soda. I'm still heavy, but earlier this year, I topped out at 300 school reps. I'm currently at 287 and losing a few pounds a month. I make it my mission to jog 3 times a week, each varying by distance and effort. I'm not in the best shape, but I've been able to jog without stopping for up to 35 minutes. Take care of yourselves, people. My energy and will to be more active has increased, and I'm glad I forced myself to do so. Story 41. I ate a chicken wing off the sidewalk, got so violently sick, I physically couldn't smoke for 2 days. Used the opportunity to quit smoking. Story 42. Ditching adult beverage bars. I have fewer friends, but the friends I have are far more genuine. I also fill my weekends with other meaningful things like cycling and video games. I also noticed my net worth magically increased the moment I stopped paying 80 weekend partying and adult beveraging. But now the money goes to my bike and video games, so it balances out, LOL. Story 43. Started bodyweight workouts at home 2 years back without missing a week till date. Lot less anxious now and a whole lot stronger. Story 44. Facing my fears and going to the dentist. I grew up in a household where no one in my family took care of their oral health. My family was poor, and my parents just never took anything health-related seriously. Of course, I maintained my oral hygiene the best I could with brushing 2x a day, But that just isn't enough. My teeth are severely crooked, and I felt a lot of shame and fear of being judged, so I also just avoided the dentist. One night I read a post on Reddit about how people wish they took care of their teeth sooner and what neglecting their oral health has done to them. It scared me, and I decided enough was enough and made that appointment. 34 years old and never been to the dentist. I cried at my first appointment, LOL, but my dentist was amazing, compassionate, and didn't judge me. We came up with a treatment plan after having 16 cavities filled and a deep cleaning. I'm scheduled for a consultation for adult orthodontics and am excited to finally have a smile I've always dreamed about. For anyone in this same situation, afraid of being judged and holding on to shame, make that appointment. Do it for yourself and future self. Their job is to help you and not shame you. I wish I did this years ago, but it's never too late. I know my future self will thank me for doing it now. Story 45. I stopped taking the pill. I was on it for heavy period, but I had a psychotic breakdown and was in treatment. I stopped taking it and feel more myself. Story 46. Contemplating for a few seconds whether or not I should bring my laptop with me, I saw a crash on the road in front of me caused by a distracted driver. I've watched Final Destination too many times to know that it isn't good. Story 47. Declined my friend's invite for a ride home from school because I had already told another friend I would ride home with her, and I didn't want to upset her. We rear-ended the car in front of us, going 35 mph right after we left school. I hit the window with the knuckles of my left hand. That accident and insignificant injury caused me to develop complex regional pain syndrome, extremely painful disease, in my left hand arm. The friend who crashed stopped talking to me after I sued her insurance company so that I would have lifetime care for my condition. It's been 30 years and I still have intense chronic pain on a daily basis. I wonder how much different my life would be if I hadn't gone with the friend that crashed. It has made me more empathetic to people's suffering and unbelievably grateful when I have lower pain days. Story 48. I was looking through my old Steam accounts to find which one I have Borderlands 2 on. While online on one specific account for a few minutes, an old friend wrote me, and we got to talking again. He introduced me to a friend who is now my wife. Story 49. I stayed home sick from work. Found out some kids threw rocks from a freeway overpass around the same time I would have been passing by the area. Turns out one of the rocks went through a windshield, caused an accident that eliminated the passenger of a car. Story 50. Me. I like you. She. Still friends? Me. Still friends. We are still friends, even to this day. Releasing that sentence out loud and realizing it was not the end of the world, crowds didn't gather to laugh at me, and I didn't need to change my name and address after her saying no was huge. Story 51. On week 4 of no plant substance and 12 years, no adult beverage. Life is brighter. My depression is pretty much gone, and exercising regularly has changed my life in many, many ways, mostly for the better, but lost some friends who I realized I only was around high or while drinking. But hey, you win some, you lose some. Story 52. Quitting smoking and processed sugars, sodas, ice creams, cookies, etc. Walking at least 30 minutes a day. Lifting weights 5 days a week, getting enough sleep. My health has never been better, and I'm seeing improvements in every area of life. I have more energy. I don't feel like shoot in the morning. Bowel movements are elite. Losing fat and mental is getting better. Take care of your health before anything. Story 53. Joining the military. It seemed like a small choice at the time, but it was the best decision I ever made. Story 54. Was invited to a minor league baseball game last minute, went on a whim, and met my husband. Been together going in 7 years, and our 1-year wedding anniversary is in 10 days. Story 55. Decided to send the author of a story I had read online a message telling her how much I enjoyed it. We're married now. Story 56. Watching the movie Encanto, which started me down the path of questioning my gender, which then lead to me realizing that I'm trans, which then lead me to starting on HRT, which has massively improved my mental health and changed my life and body for the better. See? Story 57. Got a sleep study done. I have moderate to severe sleep apnea. Been sleeping with a CPAP machine for about 7 years now, and I feel like I've extended my life expectancy. I rarely need a cup of coffee in the morning to get going now. Story 58. Making the bed. Sleeping with my phone in a different room. Exercising once a week. Small changes compound. Story 59. Started taking fiber pills every day. My dreaded morning trip to the bathroom is now a thing of the past. Story 60. Bought a Ninja Foodie multi-cooker. I used to eat a diet of mostly ultra-processed food, but since this thing has almost entirely removed the tedium of cooking and produces such great results, I've not touched ultra-processed foods for months, and I feel amazing. I'm losing weight, my depression is gone, various long-standing aches and pains have subsided. Everything is better. Best 100 I ever spent. Story 61. Going to see a therapist. It helped me better understand my emotions and not to take out my frustration, anger to my loved ones. At times you get angry for having a bad day, and your loved ones will be there to make it better, which I was too blindsided to see if I didn't go see a therapist. Story 62. Back in 2010, I was fudge around on Omegle after school. Ended up talking to a random teenage dude from America. I am from Greece. It's been 14 years and we got married this June, LOL. Story 63. Messaging my now wife online thinking I had a chance as she is a doctor and am a sack of shoot. Learn to always shoot your shot that day. Story 64. I decided to take my friends visiting out of town to hang out at our apartment pool. It was a nice July day, and I was floating in the pool and befriended one of the girls hanging out in the pool. She was one of my first adult friends without a prior connection I made. Through a series of events that could be traced back to meeting this girl at the pool, I met my partner at one of her former coworker, who is now one of my good friends' wedding. Had I not befriended that girl at the pool, I wouldn't have had most of my adult friends or met the love of my life. Story 65. About 3 years ago, I responded to a random Reddit post that I shouldn't have seen buried in my feed on an alt account. I wasn't quite myself when I messaged, and now I'm sitting next to my fiance, my best friend, the most wonderful human I know, the love of my life. Story 66. Choosing to go against my fears. Every time I have one. Exposure prevention therapy. I suffered chronic OCD for many years. Locked myself in my room because of it and too afraid to do anything. Because I didn't have money for therapy, I taught myself from online, little by little. Now I'm 31, I have my own life, I can go outside anytime I want. I have a husband and am an expecting mother who lives a fairly normal life now. Something I wouldn't have thought ever possible, and I am no longer on heavy medications. Don't get me wrong, OCD never goes away. There is no cure. And some days are harder than others, but I push myself past the fear the best I can every second of every day. It's difficult, but it's so worth it. Now I know what freedom feels like. Story 67. Probably really minor, but get into a relationship. It fell apart and left an emotional scar that I've carried with me ever since. Story 68. Being blunt and standing up for myself. Years of being used for everything, time, labor, money lied, to verbal punching back, and left on red when I asked for help or to vent. Funny when you tell people you won't tolerate being used for anything they drop you. Thank you to my therapist, who made me see that if they won't go out on a limb for you, why do it for them? So many people come to me with their problems with their friends, and when asked why don't they set boundaries or say no to that friend, they start making excuses to stay in the situation they claim they want nothing to do with. I follow up that it's not really my problem, especially since they won't do anything to fix their problem. Story 69. Listening to a whole variety of music artists. Back in the day, my taste in music was so bland, you could only categorize it in 3. But as I read more articles online and started watching people on YT react to artists I've never heard of, it started to expand. I don't regret it one bit, since I now have a bit more to choose from than what I used to listen to at only age 13, 14. I think to some extent it can be scary, but once I started exploring genres more, I've learned to be a lot less picky than I was at first. My favorite artist list keeps on expanding. Story 70. Swiped right on some chick because I thought she was cute and liked dogs. Been married 8 years and together for almost 10. Story 71. To stop trying to find a reason for everything. Sometimes life can be shoot, and that's true for everyone. Instead of thinking, why me, it's much better to think, why not me? Changes your whole perspective on things and stops you from wallowing in self-pity. It's a much better way to live. Story 72. Deciding to do choir in high school changed the trajectory of my whole future. I always loved singing as a kid, and so I joined an a cappella group in general choir once I was in high school. Because of this, I wound up going on a choir tour that visited the college I would wind up attending a couple of years later. We had a stop there to do a workshop with their college a cappella group, and I fell in love with the beautiful campus and surrounding mountains. I decided I would apply and got in. Once I was there, I auditioned for a campus ministry worship team. I didn't make it the first year, but they told me to come back again the following year when they would need a singer. I was disappointed and a bit embarrassed, but decided to come back my sophomore year and audition again. I made the team and wound up meeting my future husband that year. So many things fell perfectly into place, And now we've been married 3 years and are expecting our first baby in February. I look back, and I'm so glad everything happened the way it did. So many small decisions and trying again led to where I am in life now. Story 73. In college, I went up north hunting with my dad a few months after I broke up with my long-term girlfriend. I was hungry for fish fry. Of all the random things you might eat while hunting, that's not usually it. We went to the only place open that had perch, and there was a guy playing James Taylor covers. I tried my best not to cry in public when he played Fire and Rain. I called her the moment I got home. We made up, and now we've been together for 20 more years and have a whole life with 2 kids. Story 74. Take your responsibilities seriously and wake up early to start your day. This may seem like a motivational speech as usual, but it is not. Story 75. Saw my childhood love walking down the street in headphones. Still remember the 5 seconds I debated stopping him to say hello. Married 10 years. Story 76. Date a girl instead of eliminate myself. She confessed, at first I didn't have feelings for her, but I gave her a chance. Just yesterday we accidentally gave her promise rings, and so does she. Now I have 2 on my hands. I'm marrying this woman someday. Story 77. Signed on to MySpace randomly one day after I'd already migrated to Facebook. Early adopter. One of the first to join after they allowed non-university students in. I saw a message a few days old from a girl from high school saying she liked my old blog posts and asking if I wanted to meet up for a drink. We're married with 2 kids now. Story 78. Started seeing a therapist. It's crazy how much your life is dictated by your thoughts and mental health. Story 79. I commented on a friend's Facebook post. One of her, now former, co-workers saw it and thought it was funny. He ended up messaging me. We will celebrate our 4-year anniversary in October. He convinced me to go back to school and paid all my bills while I got my education, and I ended up landing a job that paid what I was making when we met. He got me into working out and meal prepping. I'm a completely new person now because of one FB comment. Story 80. Went on a cruise with a friend who had to talk me into going. I met the greatest guy in the world. We are married 35 years. Story 81. Going to my ex's birthday dinner, we were friendly with one another, led to me meeting the gorgeous intern that had just left our office. We weren't to pursue the interns, and she sat next to me and we hit it off. 16 years later, she's downstairs with the kids laughing their heads off at our youngest doing some shenanigan or another. Story 82. Doing schoolwork and any work at a desk instead of on my bed. It severely affected my productivity and my posture was awful. I still struggle with focus, but it's a lot harder to just sit back and screw around on my phone. And at a desk, I can put my laptop on a lift and sit with good posture. Story 83. I have had severe back pain since I was 13 from a car accident. It was bad, but I could deal with it. One day when it was really bad, a friend offered me a couple of pills. It was the first time I could clearly remember not hurting. It was wonderful. Sadly, though, it made me even more aware of how much pain I was in and made it harder to deal with the pain. Why should I hurt if I don't have to suffer like this? Those 3 Percocets started me down a path that led directly to IV substances, use and selling myself. I'm sober now, but it was a long, long fight. One I still deal with every day because I still hurt. But now I've got that little voice in the back of my head shouting, why are you doing this when you can just not hurt? Answer. I am supremely lucky that my brain has not developed any dangerous addictions. But I had a job where I worked closely with coworkers and community members in various stages of substance use, addiction, and sobriety. I learned about the human costs of addiction from people who were experiencing it and those that survived and woke up every day with the burden of choosing to fight or give up and give in to their addiction's siren song. Just wanted to post to remind you that you are obviously supremely strong and have great perseverance since you quit the most addictive substances around. Opioids ain't no joke. In the past 20 years, they have cut a swath of destruction across families and communities, destroying the lives of the young, the old, and ages in between. I am grateful that you refuse to let them destroy you. I hope you take the time to give yourself credit for creating a more stable, healthier life for yourself. You deserve a healthy, happy life. I also hope you realize that your sobriety proves that you of all people can do hard things, including crafting a life that makes you happy. I wish you every success and happiness. Story 84. Deciding to snooze my alarm just one more time, ended up meeting my future spouse on the later bus I almost missed. Story 85. I started working out and lifting weights about 6 months ago. It's amazing how much stronger I feel. Less aches and pains. Better mental health. Even became a morning person just to hit the gym before work. Sets the mood for the day. Story 86. 21 years ago this Sunday, I arrived in Northern Ireland for good. I'm from the US. I have never regretted the decision to move here, rather than my now husband of nearly 20 years moving there. Even though, thanks to the pandemic, I haven't seen my family, except one niece, since 2017. Story 87. Sitting in one particular seat in a restaurant. My wife was my server. If I'd sat one seat to the left, I'd have been in a different section and would not have met her. Story 88. My wife has lived in the same city her entire life and never really traveled where I traveled a lot in my life. I finally put my foot down and told her I am taking her to Hawaii. She was scared to go because she claims she can't swim. She can, but I had her take lessons at the local YMCA to help lessen the fears. Stayed at the Kahala right on the ocean, took her to Hanauma Bay, snorkeling, and Pearl, among a lot of other things. She now not only wants to go back, she wants to live there. Maybe not a small choice, but she has a completely different outlook on traveling for the better. She is much happier now with the excitement of going to new places that she would have never considered before. Oluwana Story 89. Back in 2013, after a particularly devastating breakup, I made the decision to go and study abroad since I no longer had my ex keeping me from doing so. I ended up in a Trondheim that following January. Since I didn't really know anyone, I decided to sign up for a program that would pair international students with local students. When I got my buddy, I was confused because the name on the email was a woman's name and not one that was gender neutral. Come to find out, she listed her gender as male because she got along better with men. We ended up going out a couple of times. I came back to the States that summer and saw that she had announced her pregnancy on FB. I immediately reached out to ask if she thought I was the father, to which she said she didn't believe so because of the protection we used. Fast forward a few years, and I got a message from her asking if I'd be willing to take a paternity test. I agreed with no hesitation, and after a 97 match, I became the biological father to an absolutely incredible little girl. Because of the decision to sign up for that buddy program, I get the privilege to be a part of her life as much as I can be. Story 90. I did choice stop self-care. Its little choice did me stronger, smarter, more energetic, achieve goals. Story 91. Choosing to read a book during my lunch breaks instead of scrolling through my phone. It sparked a love for learning and led to career advancements I never imagined. Story 92. I started to cook my favorite meals at home. I lost some weight earlier this year, and I've been maintaining it ever since. Also, I started to eat breakfast. That helps with your hunger throughout the day. Story 93. This may sound cliche, but really following what I want, instead of working for the degree that I finished but ended up not liking, it has brought me so much peace and fulfillment. Story 94. Joining Reddit. I used to be active on 9gag, but lost interest there, so wanted another meme site and switched to Reddit. While figuring out and exploring, I came across trauma subs and CPTSD subs. I've learned so much about myself and my mental health on there, and from the resources that regularly get posted there, that I've made more progress with my mental health in 1 year through Reddit and additional sources found on Reddit than I made in 10 years with psychologists and social workers I was seeing. This is not an over-exaggeration. I've been seeing different mental health care workers since I was 16, discovered Reddit when I was 28. I figured out a lot out on my own, and put in the work on my own instead of with therapy, and I can finally say I'm starting to become a somewhat balanced and healthy individual, something I used to think was never going to be possible for me. Story 95. I chose to ignore red flags with my then GF, now wife of 12Y, together 21Y. She lied and cheated relentlessly for 15Y, while simultaneously denying me intimacy and putting zero effort into our intimacy life or relationship. Now I'm 45 and worse and partied too hard the best years of my life on a cheating, lying YKW. Story 96. Joining the Marine Corps. Best decision I've ever made. It's hard, but who it helps you to become if you appreciate what it offers is such a transformational experience. It's also helped me prepare for my next career and appreciate this country for a lot of the good that it does that I don't think the public sees a lot. Story 97. Decaf after lunchtime. My goodness me. I can actually sleep now and totally moved on to decaf tea fully. Story 98. My cousin got super heavily involved with the Dungeons & Dragons Discord server and pestered me so much that I ended up joining it just to satisfy him. So many of my existing friends would not be my friends today if I never joined that Discord server, and I never would have met my soulmate. For all the not great that cousin is, I'll always appreciate those days. Story 99. Deciding to take a spontaneous road trip with a friend one weekend completely changed my perspective on life. It led to a deeper love for travel meeting new people, and ultimately inspired me to pursue a career that allows me to explore the world. That one small choice opened up a whole new path I never expected. Story 100. Met someone on LinkedIn that launched me into my career, several jobs, tons of connections, and basically I owe everything to this one individual. Crazy how all of that works. He showed me the power of having a great network firsthand. That was when I was 20, and now I'm 32 and still in contact with him. Story 101. Moving out of the U.S. It was the best choice my family could have made. It is too politically polarized. The U.S. has lost its way. Story 102. I put in a job application for a job I felt I was underqualified for. They set up an interview immediately. I got the job and was paid on the higher side of the pay scale. They paid my moving expenses, and now I live on the other side of the U.S., making bank on a job I never thought I'd land. I own my first home because of this hire. Story 103. Every morning before the sun fully embraced the sky, I would sit on the edge of my bed, feeling the coolness of the floor beneath my feet. My eyes, still heavy with the remnants of sleep, would close for just a moment. And in that moment, I would whisper a single line, a simple phrase that felt like it belonged more to the universe than to me. It wasn't a grand declaration or a desperate plea, just a quiet affirmation. I am here. 3 small words, almost too humble to hold any weight. Yet they carried with them the gravity of existence. A reminder to myself that I was present, that I had arrived at another day with the potential to shape the world around me. At first, it felt like an insignificant ritual, a whisper lost in the vastness of the morning. But as the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I noticed the subtle shifts. The world seemed to lean in closer, as if acknowledging my presence. Challenges felt less daunting. Opportunities appeared where there had once been walls. And even in the darkest moments, a quiet strength bubbled beneath the surface, reminding me that I was not just passing through, I was here. I am here. It was a seed planted in the soil of my daily life, small and unassuming, but it grew roots deep into my soul, blossoming into a quiet confidence that changed everything. I became more aware, more intentional, more alive. The world, once a blur of routine and obligation, became a canvas, waiting for the brushstrokes of my presence. It was just one small thing I did every day, a whisper into the void, but it anchored me to the present, reminded me of my power, and ultimately changed the course of everything. Story 104. After a bad breakup, I stopped drinking 3 weeks ago and started teaching myself piano. I tend to play a lot after work and quite a bit on Sundays. I'm getting pretty good. Not drinking has opened back up my social circles, and I've done more and had more fun in the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 3 years, probably. Story 105. The day my son became paralyzed will always haunt me. He was feeling a bit under the weather, nothing too out of the ordinary, mostly low energy and slight runny nose, and we had planned in advance to go to a pumpkin patch with our friends and their kids. Since we had planned this far in advance, bought tickets, and he wanted to go still, we decided to go. His condition deteriorated by noon, and we left early because he wasn't feeling well. Later that evening, he was screaming in pain, his foot hurt. We took him to the ER, and that was the beginning of it all. The pumpkin patch was the last time he was able to stand or walk on his own. It is no hyperbole or exaggeration that I think about this every single day. I am deeply haunted and feel riddled with guilt thinking about it. What if we kept him home? Could this have been prevented? His spinal cord injury was not due to an accident or trauma, but a virus that entered his spinal cord. It's been 6 years since this has happened, and can't let go of the guilt or thought that somehow we could have prevented this. Story 106. Decided to go out to the club with friends instead of staying in, even though I really fancied staying in. Met the guy I've now been with for 6 years, moved to his country, and can now speak a second language. Story 107. Randomly IM'd an AOL buddy I had since 1998 to talk about Spider-Man after I got hyped from seeing the first movie in 2002, cause we're nerds and I was bored in my duty station in Japan, and he was doing a semester in Cambridge, so our hours crossed. Full-blown conversation turns into regular chats about shared interests, then life. We just celebrated 18 years together. He just excitedly texted me about the latest chapter of Sakamoto Days. Story 108. Was invited to an old high school friend's wedding, hadn't spoken to her in years and wasn't going to go. Ended up deciding why not. Free food, and who doesn't love weddings? During the reception, saw a cute guy with terrible dance moves living it up on the dance floor. Someone casually introduced us. He ended up being the bride's cousin. We danced and talked all night. This was a little over 2 years ago. Couldn't be happier, and we're getting married in 2 months. Story 109. Deleted TikTok and stopped watching short video content. My life changed overnight. Now I can believe I let myself get so brainwashed over the pandemic. Story 110. I could only find overpriced flights with long layovers. Hotels were expensive and work was crazy busy, so I decided not to attend my cousin's wedding in Tel Aviv on August 7th, 2023. Story 111. Signed up for AOL after a free CD came in the mail, messaged one of their few people I knew use the service, messaged the wrong person. We've been married for 24 years now. Story 112. My father asked me to go to the casino with him on my 18th birthday. I couldn't have cared less about my family at that age and wanted to drink and go out with my friends. He died about a year later, and I don't keep in contact with any of my friends from that age. Wish I'd spent more time with him. Story 113. I walked out my house and saw some matches on the floor. I grabbed them, started shaking the box, and boom, they fell out my hand. I waited like 3 seconds looking into the fake camera of my life when I grab them and get into my truck and then leave. Well, 5 seconds down the road, a guy passed through a stop sign right in front of me, where obviously I had the right of way. He nearly scraped my grill of the truck, and he was going about 50 meters off in a 30 zone. So that little 3 seconds of hesitation had completely saved my life. Story 114. Heroin addiction. After I was violation and sold, I just wanted to feel better, not think about it, not have nightmares every night. The first time I got dope sick, I called 911 thinking I was dying. Now everyone treats me differently in my family. Yet I've never stole shoot. I have my own place and a job. I've been to multiple rehabs and therapies, yet I still go back to it. I can't seem to beat it. Answer, you can beat it, but it's so darn tough. I've been to my fair share of rehabs. I've substance hopped numerous times, so I could say wasn't addicted to XYZ because I stopped doing it. We just got to try again. We fail quitting until we don't, right? Part of me wished I never picked up any substances or adult beverage, but I have met so many wonderful people in recovery, and it has made me more compassionate. I'm rooting for you. I know other people are as well, even if you think otherwise. Please try again and never stop trying. You are loved and you deserve to feel that love. Story 115. Since my childhood, I was going to be a programmer. My dad was a software developer, and later my stepbrother became a web developer and also started a company. I also love programming, so I went to a technical high school where I studied software development, and I graduated this June. And I applied to 4 universities' software development majors and only 1 university's international studies major because I was also interested in that. A year ago, I decided that I would like to visit the US in August, so I started working at my stepbrother's company as a web developer. In a year, I was able to realize that I only like programming as a hobby, not as a full-time job. On the last day, I changed my mind and changed the order of my applications. In my country, you have to make your university applications in order so that if you get accepted into the first university, you get rejected from the others. I love what I study and am happy that I made this decision. I would have studied software development for 3 or 5 years if I wouldn't have wanted to go to the US this summer, and I would have had a diploma in a field I don't really like. Story 116. After finding out my boyfriend was married, I decided to leave and not speak to him. The following days were people calling me stupid, calling him horrible names. He is a cheating bastard, not a jerk. He is actually a very gentle guy. He is shoot for what he did, but not a bad person overall. Anyways, about 5 days after I found out, I left his apartment without an explanation because I couldn't handle it and just felt heartbroken. I was on our messages crying, just rereading all the lies, and my hand slipped calling him. I hung up immediately, but it must have gone through because he messaged me wanting to explain everything. I felt so alone and stupid and sad. I just wanted to know what happened. Well, when I saw him at my apartment, all I wanted was a hug because I felt the last few days my siblings and friends were making me feel so stupid. I just wanted comfort from someone who used to make me feel so loved and safe. One thing led to another. I felt like shoot after cause at least before I had deniability. A month later, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter. I love my daughter more than anything. So as shoot as it sounds, I don't regret it, although my self-esteem has never been lower. Story 117. Made the choice to not shoot myself with my grandfather's shotgun when I found it and knew where it was before my parents sold it. Changed my life for the worse because life has been nothing more than a spiraling monsoon of shoot ever since. Story 118. I used to do my fair work share, 9 to 5 contract, and I'd put in a good 5-10 hours overtime for free to make sure shoot was done. But I always balanced out work to personal life. All it got me was living pay to paycheck and being in my overdraft constantly. This year, I've said screw it. Changed that balance to 90 work. Took over my family business, started my own based on my hobbies, and I've kept my head down. Went back to my old bosses for seasonal work. They've noticed the attitude change and drive and have now offered me their business because they are retiring this year. One small change, and it has fairly massive waves. Story 119. I went into work on my day off for a half day, as it was COVID years, and they were strict and it was my first day back. And when I left early, my car back tire blew out and ended up flipping down a ravine several times, nearly eliminate me and breaking my back and collarbone in the process, as well as lifetime trauma. Story 120. I was miserable at my previous job. I would sit at my computer and apply to jobs on LinkedIn every night before bed. One day I was so sleepy but kept submitting my application and didn't realize that I applied for a job I was not qualified for. They reached out and set up an interview. I was freaking out when I realized what I did, but did well on the interview. They said they really liked me and my experience. I just wasn't ready for that position yet. They created a more entry level for me and told me they will help me work my way up the ladder. They still offered me $20K more than I asked for, and I've been here a few years learning and preparing to move up the next step soon. Story 121. Not caring. A couple things aren't the best right now, but I don't care. Honestly, nothing matters. It's kind of great. Story 122. Quitting my job this year. Technically, I just didn't renew my fixed-term contract. It ran out on the 16th of February. I had no new job lined up. No idea where I was going to live. I'd been staying in accommodation provided by my job. I liked the work. I just didn't like the lack of time off and low pay. I basically decided to quit on a whim one day at the end of January. 12 days after I quit, I met the love of my life. And by the 1st of April, I had landed one of my dream jobs with far better pay and benefits than my previous one. I am insanely happy now in a very good environment with a really positive outlook on my future when before I felt stagnant about it. Story 123. Got out of hospitality after 15 years and went into construction, not just for that, but to not have to deal with pleasing individuals and their self-entitled demands. Patted myself in the back for doing that when lockdown hit. Essential worker status kept me working while all my former hospitality associates were vetching all over social media. Story 124. IDK of small but vegetarianism feels so much lighter. Be aware that you might not be genetically predisposed for it, so be careful. Story 125. Microwaving or toasting wheat bread. Used to eat cold. Had funky white tongue and burning pee when beer. Cooker bread again. Heat it up. Story 126. Choosing to say yes to new opportunities, even when I was scared, led me to meet incredible people and discover passions I didn't know I had. Story 127. Didn't do my homework often my freshman year of high school. The long-lasting effects have been absolutely devastating emotionally and financially. To be fair, it was very common to have 4 hours or more of homework in a day, so I was rebelling against the system and taking it like a martyr, except math, because I knew if I fell behind, it'd be screwed. After I graduated, the school got in a lot of trouble, and the board had to regulate how much they were allowed to assign for homework daily. Story 128. Quit my birth control for better health and mental wellness. Felt like a new woman for the first month off of it, but now I'm pregnant. Story 129. I started listening to the Jocko podcast. Sounds trite, but it really changed my life. Well, actually, the suggestions he makes helped me to change my life. About 8-10 years ago, I had a terrible boss. We transitioned to a new software, and our whole team was struggling to complete the reports that verified that we had done our job. This boss asked in a meeting what the issues were. I explained what my struggles were. His response? Figure it out. Nothing like, call this person, they will give you further training, or since the whole team is having issues, we need to get a trainer in the field to assist you when you're experiencing these issues. Just figure it out. I was pissed. About 6 months later, I had started listening to the Jocko podcast, and he's talking about extreme ownership. I learned that if I wanted to be good at my job, it was on me to figure it out. Tony Conrad is still a terrible boss, but I'm a great employee who figured it out. He just happened to be right once. The guy lacks leadership qualities, and the success of his teams has pushed him up the ladder, but he's no longer my boss, so I don't give a shoot that he's a bad boss and a worthless human being. Story 130. I was a janitor at this big Ivy League school, and at nighttime when it'd see a problem on the board that only a few people in the world could solve, it'd solve it, then lie about doing it. Story 131. Put a token down with a large group of people sponsored by the unknown digital enterprise Air Wing on the dark web for a pot of 350 Bitcoin. Story 132. I cut off all ties to my immediate family. They're hardcore Trump supporting right-wing Christians, thus they enjoy running people down behind their backs. I haven't spoken to most in almost 10 years. They know nothing of what's going on in my or my son's lives. It's glorious. Story 133. Debatable if the choice was small or the change affects my life, but I joined a swim team and now my back doesn't hurt every morning after sleep. Story 134. Could anybody copy-paste the question regarding the show Ho See on their subreddit? It's visible on my profile, I believe. I can seem to post something there, don't know why. Would be very nice of you. This is a throwaway ACC, and I don't usually use Reddit. Story 135. Got to my first unit when I was in the Army, and the first SGT asked for volunteers to be the IT guy. Shortage of IT must 25B guys at the time, and I raised my hand without putting much thought into the decision at all. Now I make. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.